All right, get ready. We've got a whole stack of slides here all about, well, the big stuff, the challenges and opportunities that are like defining the 21st century. Feels like we're about to dive into a crash course in everything from climate change to gene editing, all the things that are really impacting our world today.
And what's fascinating is that it's not enough to just understand climate change in isolation, right? We need to look at how it all connects. I mean, how it ties into things like global health and economic inequality.
Exactly. We're not just going to walk through these slides one by one. We're going to try to connect the dots, see how these global issues feed into each other, what kind of surprising advancements might actually hold solutions. Get ready for a bit of a whirlwind tour. We're talking cutting edge tech, global issues, and hopefully, a little glimmer of hope along the way.
Yeah, some hope is definitely needed. It's easy to get, I don't know, maybe bogged down by the sheer scale of these challenges, right?
Yeah.
But there are incredible opportunities out there for positive change.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's set the stage. Your slides lay out some pretty ambitious learning objectives. We're talking about identifying those key challenges of the 21st century, analyzing the impact of things like globalization and technology. We're even going to try to evaluate the opportunities that come with these challenges and maybe even brainstorm some innovative solutions to these global issues.
That's ambitious for sure. And that ambition is crucial because the 21st century demands, a whole new way of thinking. We need to recognize just how complex and interconnected these challenges really are.
We can't just put on blinders and tackle one problem at a time anymore, right? Everything is totally linked. So diving right in, your second slide highlights some of the major challenges we're facing. We've got climate change and all the environmental damage that comes with that, global health crises and pandemics, economic inequality, and all the social unrest that comes along with that. And then, of course, political polarization and extremism.
It's quite a list, right? Makes you wonder about the root causes of all these challenges. Are they purely environmental? Or is there a social and political dimension woven into all of this as well?
That's where things get really fascinating. The slides pinpoint the climate crisis as a major, major player in all of this. We're talking rising global temperatures, melting glaciers, these extreme weather events we keep seeing. All of this has a massive impact, not just on the environment, but on human societies as well.
And the science is pretty clear. Human activity, especially our reliance on burning fossil fuels, is a major driver of all of this.
Slides 3 and 4 really drive home the urgency of the situation. You can already see the consequences, right? Our rising sea levels swallowing up coastal communities, entire ecosystems on the brink. Even the ocean is becoming more acidic. It's pretty alarming, to say the least.
And if we zoom out a bit and connect this to the bigger picture, climate change amplifies so many of the other challenges on that list. I mean, think about it. Resource scarcity caused by climate change can easily lead to, economic instability and social unrest.
It's like a domino effect, one thing knocking into the next. And then, of course, there's the whole issue of global health crises. Slide 5 points out that pandemics are becoming more likely thanks to things like, denser populations and all the increased international travel we do these days. We all saw how COVID-19 turned the world upside down.
And it's not just pandemics, right? We're facing this terrifying prospect of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And of course, chronic diseases are on the rise, which puts this immense strain on healthcare systems around the world.
And this is where those disparities in healthcare access we see all over the world become like a matter of life or death. It's not just about having enough hospitals, it's about ensuring that everyone, no matter their income or location, has access to quality care.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the mental health crisis either, often overshadowed but deeply connected to many of these challenges.
Yeah, it feels like we're surrounded by problems. But your slides don't just leave us hanging with a list of doom and gloom, right? They also explore some advancements and potential solutions. They offer a glimmer of hope.
That's what's crucial, right? We need to shift that focus from despair to action. What can we actually do, both individually and collectively, to face these challenges head on and build a brighter future?
Okay, so let's talk solutions. Slide 6 introduces this really intriguing concept called welfare capitalism. Imagine a system that merges free markets with government intervention. The goal, ensuring a basic level of well-being for all citizens.
It's definitely a tricky balancing act, trying to reduce poverty and inequality without stifling economic growth. It demands a deep understanding of both economic and social policies.
Definitely sparks debate. Some argue it's the path to a fairer society, while others worry about government overreach and its impact on, individual freedom. What are your thoughts on welfare capitalism?
Well, if you think about the Nordic model, countries like Sweden, Denmark, Norway, they've managed to achieve relatively low levels of inequality and high levels of social mobility while maintaining strong economies.
So are you saying those countries are like a real-world example of welfare capitalism in action? Does it really work?
Well, there are definitely trade-offs. Some argue that these systems can lead to higher taxes
Right.
and maybe even bureaucratic inefficiencies. Others worry about um, potential disincentives for work and innovation.
Okay, so welfare capitalism complex issue with no easy answers. Makes you think about the role of government versus individual responsibility in creating a just society.
And then that leads us to another potential game changer, technology. Often hailed as the solution to all our problems. But slide 7 reminds us that it's not that simple. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, like social media, right? It connects people across the globe and can build communities, but it can also be this breeding ground for like misinformation and mental health issues, especially for young people.
We're still figuring out how to, I don't know, maybe wield this powerful tool responsibly. It has immense potential for good, but can also be incredibly damaging if misused.
So we need to be mindful of both the positive and the negative impacts of these advancements.
Right. So let's dive into some of those groundbreaking breakthroughs your slides highlight.
Let's do it. Slide 8 lists some truly mind-blowing advancements. Artificial intelligence, gene editing, renewable energy, space exploration, the Internet of Things. It almost feels like we're stepping into a sci-fi movie.
It does, doesn't it? But it's real.
Yeah.
And these technologies have the potential to actually tackle some of the very challenges we've been talking about.
Imagine, like, using AI to personalize education, making learning more effective and accessible, right?
Right.
Or think about AI assisting doctors with diagnoses, speeding up drug discovery, maybe even helping to predict and prepare for natural disasters. I mean, the possibilities are astounding.
And what about gene editing with CRISPR-Cas9? Slide 9 highlights that. We're talking about the potential to cure genetic diseases, create drought-resistant crops, and even tackle food shortages. Think of CRISPR like molecular scissors that can cut and paste DNA. Right? It allows us to rewrite the very building blocks of life. This opens up incredible possibilities for treating diseases that were once considered, incurable.
But like any powerful tool, gene editing comes with those ethical considerations. We need to be very careful about those unintended consequences.
It's not just about the science itself, it's about how we use it, right?
Yeah.
We need to have these open and honest conversations about the ethical implications of gene editing, make sure it's used responsibly, and for the benefit of all.
So gene editing, potentially revolutionary, but demands thoughtful consideration. Now, what about renewable energy? Slide 10 focuses on the growing affordability and efficiency of cleaner energy sources, like solar and wind power.
It's exciting to see that shift towards more sustainable energy happening. Solar and wind are becoming more and more common, and we're even exploring other options like tidal and geothermal energy.
Feels like we're finally moving away from fossil fuels.
Yeah, and government incentives and policies play a crucial role in accelerating that transition, right? We're seeing more investment in renewable energy research, which is driving innovation and making clean energy more accessible.
It's like a positive feedback loop, right? The more we invest in renewables, the cheaper and more efficient they become, and the faster we can transition to, a cleaner energy future. And speaking of clean transportation, slide 11 highlights the rise of electric vehicles.
Electric vehicles are becoming like a real contender in the automotive industry. They produce zero tailpipe emissions, require less maintenance, and they even offer a quieter and smoother ride compared to traditional cars.
I've heard they're even cheaper to operate in the long run, considering, the rising cost of gasoline. But what about that higher upfront cost? Electric vehicles aren't exactly cheap.
Yeah, that's where those government incentives come in. Many countries are offering tax breaks and rebates to make EVs more affordable. Plus, battery technology is constantly improving, making them more efficient and extending their range.
So are you saying electric vehicles are the future of transportation?
Well, it's certainly a promising direction, right? They address several of those key challenges we've been discussing, from reducing our reliance on those fossil fuels to, mitigating climate change.
Okay, let's shift gears back to the digital realm. Slide 12 delves into the world of artificial intelligence and its potential to revolutionize various fields.
AI is like a true game changer. Imagine personalized education that adapts to each student's learning style and pace, right? Or consider AI-powered healthcare diagnostics that can detect diseases earlier and more accurately.
It sounds like AI could play a major role in addressing some of the most the most pressing challenges we face.
Exactly. AI can help optimize energy consumption, which leads to a more sustainable future. It can assist with disaster response, potentially saving lives. It can even enhance cybersecurity, protecting us from those digital threats.
Wow, the potential applications of AI are truly vast. But with all of this incredible technology, there's also, like, a dark side, right? Cybersecurity becomes a major, major concern in our increasingly digital world.
You're absolutely right. As our lives become more intertwined with technology, we become more vulnerable to those cyber attacks.
Yeah.
I mean, think about all your personal information, your financial transactions, even critical infrastructure. All of that is now connected to the internet.
It's a little unsettling to think about how vulnerable we are in this digital age.
Which is exactly why cybersecurity is so important, right? It's not just an IT issue anymore. It's a matter of national security, economic stability, even human rights.
Okay, so what are we doing to protect ourselves from these cyber threats? It feels like a constant uphill battle.
It is. But there are things we can do. Slide 13 highlights some of the latest advancements in cybersecurity. One of the most promising developments is the use of, well, AI itself to actually detect and respond to those threats. AI can analyze vast amounts of data, identify patterns, and flag suspicious activity in real time.
It's like having I don't know, maybe an army of digital detectives constantly patrolling the internet looking for trouble. But what about the human element in all of this?
Right. We can't just rely on technology. We need to educate people about online safety, encourage those strong passwords, and raise awareness about, phishing scams and all those other cyber threats.
It's about being proactive and informed, both as individuals and as a society. We need to equip ourselves with the knowledge and tools to navigate this increasingly complex digital world.
Exactly. But technology can only take us so far, right? Ultimately, addressing these challenges requires collaboration, critical thinking, and a global perspective.
And that's what we'll dive into in part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll explore how, individuals can actually make a difference and which advancements might have that most significant impact on shaping our future. Stay tuned.
So welcome back to our deep dive into the challenges and opportunities, all those things that are shaping the 21st century.
We've covered a lot of ground already, but there's always more to explore.
Oh, definitely. And in this part, I want to zero in on some specific areas that, that seem particularly relevant to you based on the slides you sent.
You mean those thought-provoking questions from slide 14, right?
Yeah.
The ones about, like, what other challenges we're facing, how we can contribute to solutions, and which advancements will have the biggest impact, those ones.
Exactly. And one thing that jumps out at me is that the challenges laid out in those slides, well, they're really just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, the 21st century is, it's full of surprises.
Okay, give us an example. What kind of curveballs are we talking about?
Well, just consider the rapid pace of technological change, right? We're witnessing this rise of automation and artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And while they hold, immense potential, they also have the power to disrupt entire industries and potentially displace jobs.
That's a big one. And it's not just blue-collar jobs at risk either, right? AI is making its way into fields like law, finance, even medicine.
Exactly. This raises some important questions about the future of work. How do we prepare for a job market that's, constantly evolving? What skills will be most valuable in this new landscape?
It's a bit overwhelming, to be honest. Should we be, like, resisting these technological advancements or embracing them wholeheartedly?
Well, I don't think it's about blindly resisting or embracing.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about, understanding the potential benefits and risks of these technologies and then figuring out how we can, shape them to serve humanity.
I like that. It's about being proactive, shaping the future instead of just letting it happen to us. But how do we actually shape technology? Is it through government policy, individual choices, maybe a bit of both?
It's definitely multifaceted. I mean, governments need to create policies that encourage, responsible innovation, protect workers' rights, and ensure that everyone benefits from these advancements, not just a select few.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act, trying to foster innovation without, leaving people behind.
It is, and that's where individual choices come into play too, right? I mean, we can support companies that are developing and using these technologies ethically. We can advocate for policies that prioritize, things like ethical AI development and data privacy.
Good point. It's easy to feel powerless in the face of, like, these massive technological shifts, but our individual choices can make a difference.
Absolutely. And speaking of choices, another challenge that's closely intertwined with technological advancement is the issue of cybersecurity.
Oh, right. We touched on that earlier. As our lives become, more and more digital, we're opening ourselves up to all sorts of new risks.
Think about it. Our personal information, our financial transactions, even critical infrastructure like power grids and transportation systems, it's all connected to the internet now. That makes them potential targets for cyber attacks.
It is kind of scary when you put it that way. It feels like we're putting all our eggs in one basket.
And that basket has a few holes in it, unfortunately. Cybersecurity isn't just an IT issue anymore. It's a national security issue, an economic issue, even, a human rights issue.
So what can we do to protect ourselves and our communities from these cyber threats? It feels like a constant uphill battle.
It is, but there are things we can do. On an individual level, I mean, we need to be vigilant about our online activity, right? Use strong passwords, be wary of phishing scams, and, think twice before clicking on those suspicious links.
Those are all good tips. But what about the bigger picture? What can be done, I guess, on a systemic level to combat cybercrime?
Well, we definitely need stronger regulations and more international cooperation. Cybercrime often crosses borders, so we need this coordinated global effort to, track down these criminals and hold them accountable.
It feels like we're always playing catch up, though. These cyber criminals are constantly coming up with new ways to exploit vulnerabilities.
It's true, they're always innovating. But, the good guys are innovating too. We're seeing incredible advancements in threat detection, prevention, and response.
Yeah, slide 13 mentioned how AI and machine learning are being used to identify and neutralize threats in real time. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And we're also seeing the adoption of what's called zero trust security models.
Mm.
Basically, it assumes that no user or device can be fully trusted.
That sounds pretty intense. So no one gets a free pass.
Exactly. It's a more proactive approach to security,
Yeah.
Constantly verifying identities and permissions to minimize the risk of breaches.
Okay, so we've talked about some of those additional challenges that weren't explicitly covered in the sides. Now let's circle back to that question about individual contributions. How can we as individuals make a real difference when we're talking about, these global issues? It's easy to feel like our actions are like just a drop in the ocean.
Well, it's true that these challenges are, they're complex and daunting. But remember, even small actions can have a ripple effect. Every positive change, it starts somewhere.
So what are some concrete things we can actually do? Give us some examples.
Well, I think it all starts with education, right?
Yeah.
The more we understand about these issues, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions and take meaningful action.
Okay, so knowledge is power.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, think about the choices you make in your daily life. Can you, reduce your carbon footprint by biking, walking, taking public transportation instead of driving? Can you conserve water, maybe by taking shorter showers or fixing those leaky faucets? Can you choose, eco-friendly products when you shop?
Those are all great practical tips. It's about being mindful of our impact on the planet, even in small ways.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of your wallet either, right? Support businesses that align with your values. Choose products that are, sustainably sourced and ethically produced.
Those are great ideas, but what about those of us who want to do more, who want to have a bigger impact?
Get involved in your community. Volunteer your time to organizations that are working on the front lines of these issues. Donate to causes you care about. And, don't be afraid to speak up and advocate for policies that promote a more just and sustainable world.
I love that. It's a reminder that we're not alone in this. We can achieve so much more when we work together.
Absolutely. And don't underestimate the power of your voice either, right? Speak up about the issues you care about. Share your knowledge with others. Engage in respectful dialogue. Encourage your friends, family, and colleagues to learn and take action.
It's about creating a movement, this collective effort to shape a better future.
Exactly. Now, let's tackle that last question from slide 14. Which advancement do you think will have the biggest impact on society? That's a tough one.
It really is. There's so many incredible breakthroughs happening right now. It's hard to pick just one.
It's true. And I think the answer will vary depending on, who you ask. But for me, I think the advancement with the most transformative potential is artificial intelligence.
We've talked about AI quite a bit already, but why do you think it's so significant?
Well, AI has the potential to revolutionize, virtually every aspect of our lives, from, healthcare and education to transportation and entertainment. It can automate tasks, personalize experiences, and even, augment our own cognitive abilities.
It's like this incredibly powerful tool that can be used, I guess, for good or for bad.
Exactly. And that's why it's so crucial that we develop and deploy AI, responsibly, with a focus on ethics, transparency, and human well-being.
It's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we choose to use it. We need to make sure that it benefits all of humanity, not just a select few.
You've hit the nail on the head. AI is a powerful force, and it's up to us to ensure that it's used to create a more just, equitable, and sustainable world.
So what are some specific ways that AI can be used to address these challenges we've been discussing?
Well, in healthcare, AI can help doctors diagnose diseases earlier and more accurately. It can personalize those treatment plans, making healthcare more effective and efficient. And it can accelerate drug discovery, which leads to new cures and treatments.
It's like having this super intelligent assistant working alongside doctors and researchers.
Exactly. And in education, AI can create those personalized learning experiences that adapt to each student's, individual needs and learning style. It can make education more engaging and accessible to people all over the world.
It's like having a personalized tutor for every student.
Right. And in the fight against climate change, AI can optimize energy consumption, helping us reduce our reliance on those fossil fuels. It can help us develop more efficient renewable energy sources and even, monitor and predict environmental changes, allowing us to better prepare for and mitigate the impacts of climate change.
It sounds like AI has the potential to be like a real game changer in so many fields.
It truly does. But
Yeah.
again, it all comes back to human choices. We need
Yeah.
to use our ingenuity and compassion to guide these advancements in a positive direction.
We have this responsibility to shape the future, not just react to it.
And that responsibility belongs to all of us, not just, scientists and policymakers. We all have a role to play in shaping the future we want to see.
This has been like an incredibly insightful conversation. We've covered so much ground, from those additional challenges to individual contributions and the potential of AI to transform our world. What's next?
Well, our deep dive isn't over yet. There's one more crucial piece of the puzzle we need to explore: globalization and its impact on, all these interconnected challenges.
Oh, that's a big one. And I have a feeling it's going to tie together a lot of the threads we've been discussing so far.
You're absolutely right. Globalization has profoundly shaped, the 21st century landscape, for better and for worse.
Okay, I'm ready to dive in. Let's unravel the complexities of globalization and, see how it all connects. Lead the way. All right, so globalization. It feels like everything we've talked about, climate change, those health crises, economic inequality, even all the amazing tech advancements, it all seems connected to this idea of a more interconnected world.
You're right. That's a key point. Globalization has been like one of the most powerful forces shaping the world, especially over the past few decades. It's reshaping our lives in ways we're only starting to grasp, really.
So let's break it down. When we say globalization, what are we actually talking about?
Well, in the simplest terms, I guess, globalization refers to that growing interconnectedness, between nations, economies, cultures all across the globe, driven by advancements in communication, transportation, and the flow of goods, services, and information. It's like the world is shrinking and we're all becoming, more connected.
It really does feel like the world is getting smaller, especially with the internet. I mean, I can video chat with a friend in Japan as easily as I can call someone, across town.
Exactly. And this interconnectedness has brought incredible benefits. Think about economic growth, the reduction of poverty in many parts of the world, and all those opportunities for a cultural exchange that globalization has, made possible.
It's pretty amazing how easy it is to travel these days, communicate with people across borders, and access goods and services from all corners of the world.
It's true. Globalization has made our lives richer, I guess, and more diverse in many ways. But like any powerful force, there are also downsides. It's contributed to things like economic inequality, environmental damage, and even the spread of, those infectious diseases.
There's that double-edged sword again, right? Creating opportunities, but also making existing problems worse.
Yeah, always trade-offs, right? Take climate change, for example.
Yeah.
Globalization has led to, increased production and consumption, which drives up those greenhouse gas emissions. It's also enabled companies to shift their operations to countries with, I guess, less stringent environmental regulations.
So globalization makes tackling like a global issue like climate change even more complicated. It's not just about individual nations acting responsibly anymore. It requires international cooperation,
Yeah.
right? And recognizing that our actions have, global consequences.
That's exactly right. We need to move beyond those national borders and work together to, address these challenges.
And those global health crises, we talked about how pandemics are becoming more likely because of all the travel and interconnectedness. That's definitely a downside of globalization, right?
Yeah, the rapid spread of COVID-19 was like a harsh reminder of how interconnected we really are and how quickly a virus can, well, it can travel the world.
True.
Globalization makes it tougher to contain outbreaks and demands a coordinated global response. It's no longer an over-there problem. It can become an everywhere problem really fast.
It also highlights those disparities in healthcare access that we talked about earlier. A pandemic, well, it can really expose those inequalities, make them even more deadly.
Absolutely. The countries with, weaker healthcare systems are often hit the hardest. And those inequalities are often made worse by those economic shocks that, well, that often accompany a global pandemic.
It sounds like globalization presents like a real dilemma. How do we harness the benefits of a more interconnected world while at the same time mitigating those negative impacts? Is it even possible to like strike that balance?
It is a difficult challenge, but, um, I believe it's possible. It requires a shift in our thinking. We need to move beyond just self-interest and recognize that we're all interconnected. Our actions have consequences that extend far beyond, our immediate surroundings.
It's like that saying, think globally, act locally, right?
Exactly. We need to find ways to promote sustainable development, reduce inequality, and strengthen that international cooperation. It's not about rejecting globalization altogether.
Hmm.
It's about shaping it to better serve the needs of both people and the planet.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually make that happen? What are some like concrete steps we can take?
Well, I think for starters, we need to support fair trade practices. This means ensuring that workers in developing countries, that they're paid a fair wage and that they work in safe conditions.
So it's about making those conscious choices as consumers, supporting companies that, that prioritize those ethical and sustainable practices.
Exactly. Yeah. We also need to advocate for, stronger environmental regulations, both here at home and internationally.
And what about those inequalities that that globalization can sometimes make worse?
Well, addressing those requires investing in, education, healthcare, social safety nets, all to ensure that the benefits of globalization are more evenly distributed.
It sounds like creating a more just and sustainable form of globalization. Well, it requires both individual actions and, I guess, systemic change.
You got it. And that's where our power lies. We can vote for leaders who prioritize these issues, support organizations working to make a difference, and, we can make conscious choices in our daily lives that align with our values.
This has been a really amazing deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from climate change and those global health crises to the incredible potential of technology and, and the complex dynamics of globalization.
It's a lot to take in, I know. But what stands out to you? What are you going to, walk away and think about?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that, we're living in a time of like unprecedented change. And our choices, they matter more than ever. We're not just passive bystanders. We have the power to shape the future, both individually and collectively.
I completely agree. We need to use that power wisely. We need to continue to learn, to question, to innovate, and most importantly, to work together to create a world that is more just, more sustainable, and more prosperous, for all.
Well said. This has been like an incredibly thought-provoking conversation. I hope it's inspired you, just as it's inspired me, to make a positive impact on the world.
Remember, the future isn't, it's not something that just happens to us.
Yeah.
It's something we actively create through our choices and actions. So let's get out there and create a future we can all be proud of.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 21st century. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.